Well, welcome back to Boldline, where we talk about people and partnerships shaping Central Florida's workforce. I'm Pam Nabors, Chief Executive Officer and President of CareerSource Central Florida. In today's episode, we'll explore what it really takes to lead successful transformation, learn about a people-first approach, and how organizations can create impact that lasts. And so today I have the honor and privilege of having Daniel Entwistle, who is the CEO and U.S. co-founder of Curium Solutions, and also my friend. Daniel is a business transformation leader and consultant who leads the U.S. operations of Curium Solutions. Curium is an international consulting firm specializing in organizational transformation, leadership development, change management, and business strategy. He has been instrumental in expanding the company's presence in the U.S. since relocating from the United Kingdom to Orlando just 10 years ago, right, Daniel, in 2016. So welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, Pam. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for that amazing introduction as well. I think we should go on a roadshow together.
I think so. I think so. Well, we could because we always have super interesting conversations since we met
We do.
probably little more than 5 years ago, I'm thinking
Yeah,
now. And
2021.
we met because Daniel is originally from Manchester, UK, and my daughter lives, works, and has a house and a husband in Manchester, UK, or a little town outside
Yeah.
of Manchester, UK. And so we had all of that kind of personal history in common. And then we've just had a lot of also, leadership and management ideas in common. And so I kind of like to start these podcasts with a little personal icebreaker, Daniel. Nothing too
Yeah.
difficult for you to answer, but yours is a little different. So you and I always talk about the differences between the US and the UK.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just ask you a few things about what is your favorite and in the US versus the UK. All right. You
Good
ready?
one. Yep, I'm ready.
Okay. So, what is your favorite food to eat in the US?
That's a good one, but I do love a good steak.
Oh, of
Top
course.
of the list is a good steak, and I also like grilling. I think in the UK we only get about 1 week a year where you can barbecue because of the weather. So the ability to just grill every weekend here is fantastic. But steak would absolutely be right up there.
Oh, love it. How about the UK?
The UK Sunday roast with all the trim.
Sunday roast. Isn't that
Yeah.
often a beef roast or a pork
It
or pork?
is. Yeah,
Yes,
beef
beef
roast,
roast.
roast potatoes, some other weird things that you'll have to go and Google if you want to know what they are, like Yorkshire puddings.
Ah, I know what that
Um,
is. I know what
yeah,
that is. It's
okay.
very complicated to make.
It is. It
And it's
is. You
not
can't
pudding.
cheat and use the packet.
And not pudding as we in the US think of pudding at all.
Definitely not pudding like that.
Well, that's cool. Okay, so how about we are in the midst of, World Cup craziness, and
Yes.
England, in fact, is in the semifinal, right?
Yep.
Semifinal. So
Yep.
I'm going to imagine that your favorite sport in the UK is football.
Correct. 100%.
And is England your team?
They are. So I was fortunate actually to go to Atlanta last week and watch one of the games. Didn't
Oh,
didn't make it down to Miami for the quarterfinal, but I am scurrying away trying to find a ticket for the semifinal this week again as they play Argentina. So yeah, big deal. We've not been in a World Cup semifinal for ooh, maybe 2016. I think that was the last
wow.
time. So it's been a while. It only comes around every 4 years, right? But yeah, I'm super excited. And the fact that we played at the weekend has nothing to do with my croaky throat.
And more on the home front, are you Man City or Man United?
Man United all the way. And proud to be able to say that again because we've had a few rough seasons, but we're back.
Ah, very good. How about in the US? What's your favorite sport?
Oh, we've outed out college football.
College football, any particular college?
Georgia Bulldogs.
Oh my goodness.
Can't
Oh
say
my
that too
goodness.
let's see. I knew that would be the reaction. So the
Oh,
reason being is I didn't go to college here, right? And then my best friend's from Georgia. When I
mhm.
moved here, I was the best man at his wedding. He got me into football, took me to a Georgia game, and I kind of inherited the team. But I support my local teams as well, like UCF. So go Knights,
Go
pick
Knights,
one of
charge
those as
on.
well.
Yeah.
Charge on. But yeah, I do love any college football. I love watching the football here. It's fantastic.
Cool. All right. How about your favorite vacation spot in the UK?
Oh, favorite vacation spot in the UK. I would say I've got two. So Cornwall down in the south is a very
Mhm.
nice vacation spot. Normally gets a little bit warmer in the summer months. Got nice beaches, great little
Oh,
restaurants and pubs. So Cornwall's good. And then the Lake District is also nice, and that's only a couple of hours outside of Manchester. And you got lakes. Mountains is a stretch, I guess, more big hills, but again, there's some great water activities, and again, some great places to eat and stay up on the lakes. So definitely the Lake District.
excellent, excellent. Well, I know that you have a cottage or another home in Georgia.
Yeah.
So, but is there anywhere else in the US that you like to vacation?
Yes, so for the first time last year, we went to Lake Tahoe, and
Oh,
it was fantastic. I mean, there's so many nice spots across the US, right? Depending on what you're looking for. But it felt like Lake Tahoe just had that mixture of great outdoor activities, great places to eat, not too bad on the shopping front, given I've got two daughters and a wife to keep happy as well. So Lake Tahoe is definitely one of my most favorite places in the US to visit for sure.
it is absolutely beautiful out there. So, last one is I know the answer to this one for your UK. What is your favorite candy in the UK?
Oh, quality streets. So quality streets, it's a chocolate that normally comes out at Christmas time. It's a mixture of chocolates, by far my favorite.
And do you have a US candy that you like?
Kind of Twizzlers, it's
Twizzlers.
easy. You're exactly right. It's
That's not
low
even
fat.
chocolate.
It's low fat. I was thinking yesterday, I'm not a big fan of the US chocolate. It's not, it's okay. So M&Ms aren't
Oh.
bad. Um, but yeah, I stick more to the US candy than the chocolate and have people bring me the chocolate fix over from the UK when they're visiting.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you could do Kit Kat because that's both from the
Yeah.
UK and from the US.
Kit Kat's all right. Kit Kat's all right as well. I don't mind a bit of Kit Kat. That's not bad. And Ghirardelli is not bad. I don't mind
Yes,
a bit of Ghirardelli.
yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. We get to
Yeah.
know a little bit more about you. And I'd like you to tell our audience a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up in the UK and what sparked your interest in management and leadership? How did you end up actually becoming a founder of an international consultancy?
Yeah, good question. Good place to start. So I actually grew up originally in a little town called Burnley, which is about 40 minutes outside of Manchester. But once I started working, I worked for one of the big banks in Manchester. So I spent a big chunk of my career, a decade or so of it, in between Manchester and London, working in the financial services system.
Mm,
So I just kind of grew up through that process really as well. Started as a teller in a branch and worked all the way up to VP level. So I had a variety of different roles at that point, covering regional director, strategy, and also business transformation. And I think it was in that moment when we were doing a lot of work around transforming the bank, and we'd use other consulting firms that I just recognized there was an opportunity to be something a bit different and a bit more unique in that consulting space as well. And almost be a type of organization that tries to put relationships and people over profits. So
mhm,
that's where I started to think about what I wanted to do next. Where would I go? Curium was then born in 2008, and fast forward 18 years later, and here we are. So, over 20 years now, working in sort of leadership and technology change from small and local to big and global. But I just always had a passion for people and
mhm.
helping them be the best they can be.
That's excellent. So tell us a little about Curium. Like, how did you get the Curium name? And tell us about your clients and what do you like to do best when you're working in Curium and with clients?
Yeah, so the initial name Curium actually just came out of being sat in an office. I have three other partners who are in the UK who founded the UK business originally. Sat in an office, they saw the periodic table up on the wall and said, "Oh, the symbol for Curium is CM, which stands for change management, which is predominantly what we're going to do." So it was that simple. It
I
was
like that.
born just then 18 years ago. So that's where the
Mhm.
name came from. And interestingly, when you go back in research and history, curium was an element used in radiation, which was discovered by Marie Curie. and
Mhm.
her whole foundation and the work that her and her husband did. So a little fascinating side story there.
Wow.
But yeah, a bit about Curium. So the simplest way I describe it is we help organizations and teams change and help that change actually stick. And I think quite often that change can be driven by strategy, a new tech implementation, AI adoption, or changes in leadership teams or M&A activity. But it's quite often when organizations realize what's got them here won't get them where they need to be in the future. And that's
Mhm.
where we normally sort of plug in, that intersection of sort of strategy, change, people, and technology. And at Curing, we have a big ambition. Our whole ambition is to change work for the better. Whether that work is people, process, culture, whatever it may be, we spend so much of our time at work. How can we improve those work lives so that people can perform better, so that organizations then perform better too?
Wow, wow.
Mm.
So you actually grew the business in the United Kingdom. What inspired you to come to the States and start the business here?
Good question. I get this actually asked quite often, and people say, "Well, why did you come to the US and then why Florida?" So maybe I answer both
Yeah.
of those questions
Okay, that
as
sounds
well,
good.
right? But I think the problems we were solving in the UK at the time weren't unique just to the United Kingdom or to Europe. And we'd started working with some bigger US businesses as well, companies like Prologis and Amazon. And juggling those time zones was a little bit tricky. So it
Mhm.
just felt like it was the right time for us to scale and move and have a US operation. I also knew the US really well. I'd spent time working here in the past with some of my banking and time up in New York. So I knew what business was like in the US. Um, and then I think the second part of that question, the reason why we chose Orlando, multiple reasons really. I think it's much more diverse than what people realize. Technology, healthcare, defense, education, financial services. There's just so much opportunity here. I think there's also a very good labor market. Doesn't mean there's a challenge to get talent, but there's some good labor. There's no state tax, the sunshine, the golf courses. You start to add it all up, right? It becomes a compelling proposition. And I think it's also quite a pro-business state as well. And the ability, therefore, to be here in Florida, not too different, 4 or 5 hours to the UK time zone, but also be able to manage out west. It made Florida a great fit for us, along with superb community leaders like yourself, Pam. And I'm not
Oh, well,
saying that
you're
for the
sweet.
podcast.
Oh,
I
well, thank
genuinely
you.
mean it.
Thank you. That's
So,
very nice. So, and you and I have really talked about kind of, you mentioned the talent. We've talked about sort of the differences in getting talent, recruiting good talent into your organization or working with organizations to do that, and kind of the differences between the UK and the US markets. Over here in the US, as you and I have talked about a lot, there especially here in Central Florida, there continues to be a lot of growth in so many of the industries that you talked about. We are constantly working with businesses, particularly as it relates to technical and professional talent, to find, the right candidates. And then we also, have this looming baby boomer kind of retirement
yeah.
and leaving the workforce. The demographics over here are in the US are, the baby boomer generation is just so much larger than the generations behind it. How do those challenges compare to, the UK, and kind of what's been your experience here in the US, compared to your counterparts over in the UK that are still operating Curium there?
Yeah, good question. I feel like in the US in general, it's a bit more fluid, first of all, from a talent sort of flow perspective. It's much easier to move around, I think, in the US, whereas in the UK, it's not uncommon, for example, to see 3 month or 6 month notice periods are required if
Hmm.
people want to move and change jobs. So I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing as well, with regards to that talent, it's easier to move around in the US because you've almost got what, 50 states, same language, same currency, whereas the UK is much smaller, right? And if you want to
Mhm.
go from the UK to France, you might need to learn a new language, right? Or to Italy. So there's some differences there, I think, with the fluidity and the ability of talent to move around in the US compared to the UK.
Mhm.
I think the US has a slightly more sort of work on culture as well, right? I think it's known for that. Less vacation. Doesn't mean the UK doesn't work hard still, just for my friends and my colleagues in the UK. But I think they've got more of an idea on how to balance that. So
Mhm.
I also think that that's a big difference. But I think they're still facing into a lot of the same challenges as well when it comes to the shortages or the access to talent.
Do you think there are things that we can learn from each other? Like what could European businesses or European business support organizations, learn from the US and do better? And then vice versa, what could we, either Curium here or CareerSource, Central Florida, in our roles with businesses, learn lessons from Europe?
Yeah, good question. I'm going to be a little bit careful because I've been here 10 years now, as we were just saying. So I think
Oh,
we learn things like you said from both sides, right?
yes,
For
yes,
sure.
yes.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think in Europe, they do take a slightly longer term view, especially when it comes to talent and investing in talent and investing in people development. I think it's a bigger culture of it's the right thing to do. It creates more loyalty because people feel valued and feel that they're a part of something because you're investing in them. So they
Mhm.
see that you care about them as well. So it builds that sort of unity. So I think one thing from Europe is definitely taking a slightly longer term view of developing our people and the talent pipeline and investing in them. On the flip side of that, I think from a US perspective, it's our speed, pace, agility, and ambition. People still say to me now, with all the changes over the last 10 years, do you still enjoy it here? And I'm like, this is still the land of opportunity. So I think how the US creates opportunity and gives people that chance to grab that opportunity is such a big learn. And just the pace that they move things at is pretty impressive as well.
Yeah, I love that. What you said too about learning from like greater focus and investment on talent
Mhm.
and talent development, right? Learning
Yeah.
from different European countries in general, the US is always citing the apprenticeship model
Yeah.
in Europe,
Yeah.
as something that they really want to try to create a US version of that to a greater scale, really, than we've had in the past. Because, apprenticeships traditionally have been in the United States only with, say, union shops. But I do see a lot of expansion even here in Orlando. I'm very fortunate on our board to have three traditional trade unions, but then I also have open shops through the Associated Builders and Contractors. And I think that kind of also speaks to the agility in the US business and labor force that you're talking about, that we actually then can take models and more quickly scale them. So that's really cool. It's really neat to sort of compare the differences. I also liked what you said about that England has more periods of you might have, if a company downsizes, you might have a long period where you have the opportunity to get another job. But then if you actually leave a company and you're the employee, you also have to give that period of
Yeah.
time to your employer. So you just can't go, oh, like right to work state like Florida.
Yeah. I'm
Okay,
out of
peace
here.
out. I'm on to the next on to the next position. You actually
Yeah.
have to stay during that same, period of time. So
Yeah.
interesting differences. Well,
Yeah.
you and I have worked together. Curium has been a wonderful change consultant for CareerSource Central Florida. You helped us build our bold proposition, which is our kind
Fantastic.
of guiding values around being brilliant at the basics of what we do, optimizing innovation, leading people, and developing resiliency through revenue development. Why? I know why in our organization it's been so important to carefully think through change and transformation. But why is it not something that just companies should thrust upon their workforce?
Yeah. I think probably two of the biggest things that spring to mind for me would be if you just dive straight into it, you can catch people off guard. So I think you need to take that step back and just think about, well, you may have spent a few months as a leadership team planning a change. So you're at the end of the change journey. But when you start to roll it out,
Yeah.
The rest of the organization is just at the beginning of it. So I think really thinking and being intentional about the change that you're trying to do and taking people on the journey with you is just so important so that people run towards it and not away from it.
Mhm.
And I think that leads to the second thing really as well. The sooner you involve people down the chain, the more equipped and the more they'll buy into the change because they feel like they've been a part of it. It's not just somebody else's plan. And we know sometimes, right, people say, oh, we can't share this yet, and we've got to keep this private. But the sooner we can drop the doors down and let people in a little bit, the quicker people will buy into the change and also support it as well.
Yeah. And change is just, it's actually a value and a constant in any growing
It is.
business, regardless of where you are in the world. And what advice would you give to organizations who are facing a big change? Either they're really scaling up a new product or service, or they have new requirements and regulations. Say they're in a healthcare setting and there's new requirements they have to work around, or they're, facing the prospect of having to perhaps readjust and downsize their workforce. Where do they start?
Give us a call. No, I'm just joking. That's not the answer. But yeah, no, I think the first place to start, right, is ask three or four really, sort of simple questions. And people sometimes do this, but I want to dive deep into these. Where are we now? Where we're trying to go to, and be really clear on that because people think about outputs, not outcomes. Well, we just need to be here. So if we put a new system in, we'll fix it. That's an output. What outcomes do you want from the system? So where are we now? Where we're trying to get to? What might stop us getting there or be in the way? And then the fourth and final part, critical, is what will be the impact on the people?
Mhm.
Because we need to think about, do our leaders align around this? Do our people have the right behaviors to support this? Do they have the skills required to help us land the change that we also need to do? And
Mhm.
that's where we often find change or transformation falls down. Not because we didn't have a good idea or a strategy, but it's the whole people aspect because people are the business, and that's who we expect to execute on these plans.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so if people want to call you and they're facing
Yes.
change or management and leadership needs that they need some outside support from an expert like yourself, how do they reach out to Curium?
Yep. So obviously you can reach out to anybody in our network, including yourself, Pamra. I know you've been such an advocate, and we really do appreciate the leaders in our community and the opportunities we get to work together to make a difference in our community. But you can find me on LinkedIn as well at Daniel Entwistle. You can also find our website, curiumsolutions.com/US. So there are a couple of the ways, but I would say LinkedIn or get my email address, shoot me a message on there, and always happy to have a conversation and a coffee or a happy hour and just share insights if nothing else.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for being my guest today. I so appreciate you sharing your journey and your perspective and
Awesome.
kind of us talking through similarities and challenges faced by organizations here and in the UK and Europe at large. Successful transformation doesn't happen overnight, and beyond implementing new technology or processes, software, right, or AI, it is important to keep people in mind at the top and build trust and create a culture where teams can thrive. So for
100.
listeners, you know how to find Dan and Curium Solutions. And again, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your time and perspective. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If you want to learn more about how education and workforce development connect right here in Central Florida, be sure to follow us and join the conversation. We'll see you next time.